is Lisa, aka 80s Child, coming at you with another TV review. This is Suits, Season 8, Episode 4, Revenue per Square Foot. Now, just to give you an idea of how good this episode was, because holy fuck was it good, these are my notes. Yeah, it was a lot. This episode was heavy, like emotionally heavy, dramatically heavy, thematically heavy. I want to give shout outs to the writers. Rick Hoffman, who plays Louis Litt. All the awards! Seriously, all the awards. I wish that shows like this would get nominated for Golden Globes and Emmys for these episodes, because stuff like this doesn't come around a lot. And they really should get recognized for it. Unfortunately, you don't see it happen much. So, let's just straight in. I kind of knew from last week's preview that this was going to be a really emotionally fraught, like, intense episode, and I wasn't wrong. Again, we have three fronts here. We have Louis's mugging and the ensuing issues and problems that causes. We have problems that the firm itself is having with Zane, and his, shall we say, managerial style is not going over very well amongst everybody else. And then, of course, we have the continuing issue with Alex and the name partnership. So, episode opens up. Boom. Louis and Sheila getting the hanky-panky on because they are actively trying to have a baby. And Sheila is in that mode where she's like monitoring all of her fertile times during the day, and she doesn't care what Louis is doing when she's fertile. She wants now. And even though Louis knows he's going to be late for this evening meeting with Zane and their client, he wants to please Sheila because he really does want to have a child. So, he's like, okay, let's get it on. But the funny thing is that in the past, Louis would not have dropped anything for anybody because the firm used to be the most important thing in his life. And it's interesting to see how much he's changed and how much more rounded he's become. Now that he's in a very good relationship with someone who genuinely cares about him and who he genuinely loves. So yeah, he does take that risk knowing that Zane will probably be a little pissy with him for being late, but he's like, screw it. So after that's done and Louis gets to downtown, he's walking to the restaurant where they're supposed to have this meeting. He bumps into some random guy on the street who, under the pretense of asking for directions, actually mugs him. Like, takes him at gunpoint into an alley, makes him go down on his knees, puts the gun to the back of his head, and demands Louis's phone, his wallet, and his watch. And Louis, being Louis, once he gives the guy his wallet, the guy wants his watch, and he he smacks him in the back of the head. It's like, give me your wallet, man. And Louis is like, there's $1,000 in the wallet. Isn't that enough? I'm like, only Louis would say something like that to a mugger. Not that this wasn't levity. I think Louis was probably trying to just make this situation go away as quickly as possible. And I guess some of those lawyerly negotiating skills kind of kicked in. But that just managed to piss off the mugger even more. And he eventually did hand over his phone, and the mugger beat him up pretty badly and took off running. While that is going on, now, before this actually happened, Zane called him he was like, dude, what the fuck, man? Well, why are you late? And, Lewis was kind of embarrassed to tell him this, but he explains that, Sheila and him are trying to have a baby, and she just kind of attacked him. He seems to be understanding, but this ain't going to last for too long, knowing Zane. But he says, just hurry the hell up. Get over here. And, of course, that doesn't come to pass because Lewis winds up getting mugged. While this is going on, now that Alex knows that Harvey knew all along about about Samantha Wheeler with the name partnership deal with Zane, he confronts Harvey, wanting to know if he actually knew the whole time that he had promised Alex that he was going to get the name partnership, that Samantha Wheeler already had a guarantee, on lock with Zane to have her name up there. And, Harvey, he can't lie to his friend. He's like, yeah, I knew, but that's why I was trying to help you to impress Zane to get your name out there so that, if you're just patient a little while longer, it will happen. If he's trying to get him to understand that it will happen, but if he tries to grab onto it too hard, he'll wind up possibly alienating Zane even more. And Alex throws something back to him that I really didn't think he would say. He says to Harvey, would you have done that if when you were trying to get your name up on that wall? Because as I remember it, when Jessica kept putting you off about putting your name on that wall, you came to me looking for a job. And that's like, whoa. Mic drop. Alice is not kidding. Like, at all. So, obviously, this is a continuing problem. And this is something that Harvey is eventually going to have to deal with before it explodes, because Alex is not the type of person to sit on his hands. If he doesn't feel like he's getting where he wants to go, he's just going to go. There are other law firms that would be more than happy to have a lawyer of his caliber. And I'm sure he would have no problem getting hired. So, next morning, Zane is in an uproar because Lewis never showed up. He's pissed off. He knows that's not Lewis's normal way of doing things, but after everything that has been going on with Harvey taking on the owner of the building, and then Donna going behind his back and doing things that she's not supposed to, or in his mind she's not supposed to do, and just a smattering of different things that have happened since he's gotten there, since he's become the managing partner. This is like the straw that broke the camel's back, and he's just blown his top. He's like, I'm done. I'm fucking done. Lewis is in his office trying to, see the bruise on his torso and trying to bandage himself up, and Gretchen finds him and is like, oh my God, Lewis, what happened? And he doesn't want to initially tell her, but he doesn't have much of a choice. He's already seen the bruises. So he tells her that he was mugged, and she says, you need to tell Zane what happened. He's going to blame you for something that wasn't your fault. You need to let him know what's going on. I'm sure he will understand. But in Lewis's mind, because of what he's been through in the past with Jessica and with Harvey, he's so terrified that if he tells Zane he got mugged, that it will come off to Zane as him being weak. And Lewis can't stand the idea of Zane thinking of him as weak, because they already see him as like down here, even though he's named partner and his name is on that wall. They don't treat him with the same respect that everybody else is treated with. And the last thing he wants is to do anything else that will make his situation any worse. So he begs Gretchen not to tell Zane anything, and that he will figure out some way to take care of it. So while this is happening, Donna goes to Harvey and she commends him for what he did for the cleaning lady in the building and helping her out to make sure that she got paid the money she was owed so that her mother can have that surgery. And she says, you did a really good job on that pro bono case. I think in order to drum up some more business, I think you should do some more pro bono work. Harvey's like, no. I did my one good deed limit for the quarter. Why don't you give it to one of the other partners that needs the work? He's already got enough stuff to do as named partner and dealing with Zane and all this other stuff. So she can tell that his head is not quite in the game right now. He's so focused on dealing with Alex and that name partnership and how he's going to figure that out and settling his shit with Zane that his mind is not in the game to take on the case. And she tells him, if you can't keep letting this thing with Zane go, and you can't keep putting Alex off, because, if you put off Alex too much longer, he's going to leave. And if you put off the thing with Zane too much longer, it's going to explode. So you're going to have to confront this at some point. And if you don't want to take on the pro bono work, I will give it to somebody that does want to take on the pro bono work. So she comes up with the idea to give it to Katrina. This will help Katrina get a little more pro bono experience and to give her a little more time to shine, since she's looking towards that senior partnership thing. Now, the case that Zane and Lewis were meeting with a client about was a class action. And because Lewis did not show up, Zane's like, you know what, fuck him. If he's not going to show up, I'm not going to give him the fucking case. And he calls Samantha into his office, and because she's his go-to, he says to her, if Lewis wants to fuck me over, I'm going to fuck him over right the fuck back. So he gives her his case. So the reason why this suit is such a big deal, or why the meeting was such a big deal, was because the client who needed help with this class action lawsuit is one of Lewis's oldest clients. And to have that taken away from him, not only is it demeaning because he knows this client, he's familiar with this client knows him, they have a relationship, and to have that ripped away from him and given to somebody else who really doesn't know the client the way that he does, and not only feels him like he's demeaning his skills as an attorney, but also kind of undermining him as a person and making him feel extremely small. So, but at this point, Zane just doesn't give a shit. He feels an example needs to be made because of Lewis's fuck up. So he gives the case, and surprisingly enough, considering how willing at one point Samantha was to walk over everybody else to claim her own success in this company, she was surprisingly reluctant to take on the case. Because I think that she, well, at first she says that it's because Lewis is her boss and she doesn't want to step on his toes. And I'm sure there is some of that there, but I think there's something more to it. And once you see the end of the episode, you see that there is a little more to it than meets the eye with them. It's not what you think, but it's something interesting, very interesting, especially for someone like her. But Zane is like, look, I don't have time for your worries about Lewis or about making him feel comfortable. This client needs to be dealt with. This class action lawsuit needs to be dealt with. An example needs to be set. You're gonna fucking take it. So, because he's your boss and he's not really giving her any other choice, she has to do it. So,
once Lewis finds out that she has the case, he is desperate to do whatever he can, not necessarily to sabotage it, but to make himself be the one that makes it successful by getting her out of the way, so that Zane will see that he still knows what he's doing. But the problem is that he's suppressed so much of what has happened to him because of the mugging, the fear and all that stuff, all the emotions from that serious event are festering inside of him, and he has not been able to let them out. He's not been able to properly express what is going on with him because he's kept it all inside. And eventually that's going to cause mistakes. So what he decides to do is, since he can't just kick her off the case because it was given to her by Zane, he has to make it so that it's impossible for her to try it, no matter how hard she tries. Now, they don't come outright and say that he did this, but it only makes sense. He meets her in court because the client he surreptitiously filed a motion to dismiss without her knowing about it. And so she's got to go to court to represent the client. And she says to Lewis, the judge is going to dismiss this. I mean, there's just no way. But meaning that the judge is going to dismiss their motion. So he says it's okay because I have a reason for doing this in the first place. I knew that motion probably wasn't going to fly. What I was really trying to do was get a change of venue to Omaha, because apparently the company's main branch or main facility is in Omaha, and the problems that caused the class action lawsuit originated in Omaha. So if they can get it to Omaha, where a lot of people over there have a dislike of this company, then it will be a very quick win for them. Because the juror pool will be primarily made up of people from that town. And she's like, oh my God, Lewis, you're a genius. Something I never thought I would actually hear her say. Oh my God. That's genius. That's genius. But she can't be there to present the case herself because something came up. This is what I'm talking about. I'm fairly certain that Lewis pulled some hanky somewhere to get her out of the way. I don't know what, but something. He says, don't worry, I got you. I got you. I will take care of this. I'm just sorry you can't be here to see this bloodbath yourself. And he is in his element, just ooh. He's just wiping the floor with these people. I mean, just bulldozing. I mean, he is in true Lewis Litt form. And then the other attorney, the opposing counsel, makes some kind of off-color remark about how Lewis is badgering his client and putting him under the gun to answer these questions. And I mean, obviously the attorney didn't mean it the way he said it, but because Lewis has repressed all of this fear and all these emotions from being mugged, just the word gun or the phrase under the gun sets him off, and he totally freezes to the point where he's almost in a catatonic state, like he's just standing there staring at the wall. And they're like, Mr. Litt, you have a rebuttal? Are you going to say something? Mr. Litt, I mean, they keep trying to get his attention, but he's unable to respond because he's in such a state of, like, if ever there was a PTSD moment, that was it. I honestly thought Lewis was going to faint or collapse or cry or something, but he just stood there like, it was as if he had left his body and went back to that moment where he was in the alley at gunpoint. Like, his body might have been there, but his mind was not there. At that moment, Louis Litt was gone. It was a stellar performance from Rick Hoffman, but it was so emotionally just sad because no one else really knew what was going on. So in their minds, he just looked like he was inept and that he shit the bed. But they didn't, as Lewis had said to so many times, you don't know what happened. You weren't there. So since the judge can't get a response from him, she has no choice but to dismiss both of the motions for change of venue and motion to dismiss because he hasn't proven his case. So he kind of did shit the bed a little. And when Zane finds out, he nearly shits a brick. Because the client was a pretty big client, one of their biggest, a very important client, one of their oldest, and now, because of Lewis's fuck up, they have to go back and fix everything before they have the potential of losing this client. I swear I thought Zane was on the verge of firing his ass. Instead, he says to Lewis that he's going to take the client away from him entirely, since he obviously can't handle it. And Lewis absolutely begs him, please don't do this. Please, you're my oldest client. But Zane doesn't give a damn. After everything else that's happened, he couldn't give a fuck. So, while this is going on, Harvey and Alex are having their own little tete-a-tete. Alex keeps going on about how he's desperate to have his name up on the wall. And he feels like the client that he brought in last week, it didn't seem to make much of a difference. So Harvey says, okay, you really want to impress Zane? Here's what we're going to do. We've got another client. Big, huge client. If we can get this client signed, there's no way that Zane won't see that. Trust me. Because Alex does trust him. He's, okay. So they go to meet with this client. And I'm not sure what kind of work that they do. Some sort of scientific work. Something to do with cryogenics. The client, or the prospective client, says to them, there are 15 different cryo labs in the world, and 14 of them have gone bankrupt. There's only one left. And we need to do work exclusively with a cryo lab. But she spent 2 years trying to buy this company, and they kept dodging her. So in order for her to sign with them, she says, I want you to get me that company. I don't care how you do it. But she wants them to make it so that she basically wants them to make the company's life a living hell, or the CEO's life a living hell, so that he will have no choice. Like if everything that he has, if all his assets, if everything the company has dries up, then the company will have no choice but to sell or to put their name under another company so that their company could survive. And Alex is like, Harvey's like, okay, sure. Because Harvey's used to doing that, shady shit. But Alex, he's like, no, absolutely the fuck not. Because he has a family. He has a wife and a child, and he can't run the risk of getting caught doing shady shit and going to prison. You would think after what happened with Mike that Harvey would have learned his lesson, but I guess he figures that the shady shit isn't shady enough to worry about. But eventually Harvey manages to convince Alex to go along with the plan, and that whatever the company has to do, it's not that bad. So they come up with a deal, and they're ready to go through with it to sign this company. And when Zane finds out about it, he's like, what the fuck is this? I told you to sign the bigger client. They're the one that we want, not this little tiny piddly shit company. And you're holding their feet to the fucking fire by making them do shady shit, and that's not right. So he tells them not to sign the bigger client, the smaller client, to let them go. One, because he doesn't want them because they're too small, and two, because it's not right what the client is going to have to go through in order to maintain the company. He feels like they're being shafted, and that's not very fair. He'd rather they sign the big client, and he pretty much bullies them into doing so, orders them, you will sign this client right the fuck now, and if you don't, I will hear about it, I'm going to fuck you up. Oh, and you can forget getting your name on that fucking wall. Period. Whereas Alex, he doesn't want to, he's willing to back off, because one, he wants his name on that wall, but more importantly, he doesn't want this poor client to have their company shafted, because if he does what he's going to do by signing them, then that means the company will be virtually enslaved to the bigger corporation that buys them in order to survive. And Alex does not feel good about this at all. He's willing to risk not having his name up on the wall in order to save this company that doesn't deserve to be fucked. But Harvey is so pissed with Zane that he could care less what Alex wants. He just wants to stick it to Zane because he's tired of Zane bullying him. And you know something? Even though Harvey is going about it the wrong way, I kind of understand where he's coming from, because from the moment that Zane has come in, the transition wasn't too bad. They had their bumps. They all agreed that Zane was the one that wanted to be managing partner. Harvey and Lewis didn't want it. They were fine with Zane having that. That's not the problem. The problem is that Zane has his own way of doing things that he's brought over from his firm. And Harvey and Lewis, and not just them, but everybody, Donna and Alex, just everybody in Spectre Lit has their own way of doing things and getting the job done. Their styles are very different. And this is never so more apparent than what happened with Donna. Donna was the one that gave the pro bono client to Katrina. And of course, Katrina has to report that information to Zane because it's billable hours and it goes into the reports that the company keeps. He calls Donna in and proceeds to rain hellfire on her for going behind his back and giving a lawyer a client without his permission. And then he says to her, why are you even doing this? You're not managing partner. Your name's not up on that fucking wall. You're the COO. Why don't you do some COO shit? Which goes back to what the title of the episode is, revenue per square foot. And then he demands that she write up a revenue per square foot report about how best they can maximize the revenue of the building, of their floor. He demands it by end of business next day. She's like, well, hold up. That's not exactly what I do. See, Donna is not your typical average COO. And she's right. Zane could have called an accountant and hired one to come out and do that for him at a much cheaper cost, and it would have been much more effective because the accountant knows what they're doing, crunching those kinds of numbers. Donna doesn't do that stuff. Not that she can't. She can do it, but it would just be average. Donna's forte is getting clients and keeping them. And shuffling and keeping Spectre Lit running. Like the entire firm, keeping it running smoothly by keeping clients coming in. She brings them in, they sign them, basically. But Zane doesn't want to hear it. That's not your job. You're not a friggin' attorney. You're the COO. Do what I fucking say. Like, he's bullied the shit out of all of them. Seriously, out of all of them. For weeks now. And it's got to the point where they're about to explode. So back to Harvey and Alex. Harvey offers that, after they've got the paperwork all filled out to sign the smaller company, he says, if you don't feel good about doing it, that's fine. The paperwork is already drawn up. I will go and I will take care of it. But Alex is like, no. We decided on doing this so that I can make a name for myself to Zane. I'm not going to be able to do that if you're fighting my battles for me. So he goes out there, and against his better judgment, even though he doesn't feel very good about doing it, he gets the smaller client to sign, which in turn gets them the bigger client, or will get them the bigger client once they present it. But when Zane finds out that they've gone behind his back, he and Harvey just... Because Harvey does things his way and Zane does things his way. And Zane feels like when they don't listen that they're just trampling all over him and not giving a shit about what he says. And that's not really what's happening. It is from Zane's point of view, because I guess in his old firm, the other partners that he worked with were always trying to get the one up on him and always going behind his back and not making him feel like he was part of the group, undermining him. And he doesn't want to go through the same thing at this new firm, especially considering that it was him who's, if he had come over and merged with them, they would be, in the gutter. There was nothing left of them before he made the decision to merge. So I think he kind of feels like they owe him. So he demands that they get rid of the small client and sign the big one. But Harvey's not hearing it, doesn't give a damn, and they get into it, just like tennis match, back and forth, blah, 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 blah. And Alex shows up out of the blue and says, whoa, this is not happening. And he lays out in detail how he managed to sign the client without screwing the client over. He rearranged the deal in such a way that they still were able to sign on this client without the client being completely enslaved to this bigger company, which still leaves them open to signing the bigger one, even though they haven't done it yet. And he makes a very good point to Zane. He's like, look, I already brought you a big-ass fucking client last week, and you acted like it never even happened. And now I brought you another one. If that is not enough for you to even consider putting my name up on the wall, and you'd rather me risk my future doing shady shit, then I don't want my name up on that wall. And I'll just go. Because prior to this, the reason why Harvey confronted Zane in the first place was because Donna came to Harvey and said to him, do you realize that, she's heard from other law firms that Alex has been taking calls from other law firms trying to find work because he's getting tired of waiting around. And now that he thinks that Zane's not going to give him that name partnership, he's just going to leave. Harvey is not having it. Alex is his friend, and he's tired beyond tired of Zane constantly walking all over him, undermining his decisions. Because in this argument that they had, Zane literally stands there and is like, I'm the managing partner, and you will do whatever I say when I fucking say it. I'm like, then what are the other two names on the wall for? Are you telling me that they have no position there whatsoever? It's just there to look pretty? I mean, seriously. That's not fair to Harvey and Lewis and how hard they've worked to get there. really sort of fucked up. You can't just walk in like a bull in a china shop and bully people. I mean, they understand that you're managing partner and that your say goes. They get that. But don't they get to have a say too? It's only fair. He's so concerned about doing things the way he wants to do them, he doesn't see the bigger picture about what's the best way to do things. And now we get to the meat. At the end of the day, when Samantha finds out that Lewis has shit the bed, she is fucking livid. Because she's like, he was literally on the verge of blowing this case out the water. It was literally handed to him in his lap. How in the hell could he shit the fucking bed? So she goes to his office to confront him and find out what the hell happened. And Lewis is just not in the mood to talk to anybody. His mind is like not all there. He right now he's in a mode where he's like a big ball of fear. His mind is still in that alley, afraid, terrified for his life. And she just keeps badgering him and badgering him and badgering him, wanting answers. And all he can say to her is, you don't know, you weren't there. You don't know the whole story, you weren't there. And it was so strong and so powerful. I have to give props to Rick Hoffman. Because just, wow. I mean, it is not easy to shut Samantha Wheeler up, but the force with which he came at her, the emotion that came off of him in waves towards her, it just stopped her cold. Like, because I don't think she'd ever experienced anything like that coming from Lewis. She genuinely looked a little scared. Not for her own safety, but just, like, shocked. Really shocked. And he said, please just get out, leave. Leave me alone. And he leaves. Or she leaves. But then she goes to Harvey and says, look, I know you think something's going on. I know you think Lewis shit the bed, but he really didn't. I'm not sure what's going on. But judging by Gretchen's look right now, I would bet that she does know. Something is seriously wrong with Lewis. And I know you would say, why doesn't he just go to Zane? He's the boss. You can just tell him. Right now, Lewis needs a friend. You are his friend. Talk to him. So Harvey goes into Lewis's office. See if, and first it says, hey, why don't we call it a early night and go eat, you know? Normally, Lewis would drop everything if Harvey asked him, well, yeah, sure. But this time, he looks and sounds emotionally drained, like emotionally exhausted. And he says to him that he just wants to go home. He doesn't want to deal with anything. And Harvey's trying to get it out of him, wanting to know what's going on. He's not really badgering him, but he's just like, Lewis, it's okay. You know, we're all friends here. You can talk to me. And Lewis is just getting progressively more on edge, like he's ready to explode again. And Harvey's like, dude, you know, calm down. It's okay. You can talk to me. And Lewis finally comes out in this emotional outburst and says he was mugged. And the look on Harvey's face, he finally gets it. this was one of my favorite scenes in the entire episode, not just because of the amazing performance from Rick Hoffman, but also Gabriel Macht was stellar in this episode, just stellar. In this scene especially, because in the past, I remember when the show first started, I remember how shitty that Harvey used to be towards Lewis, and how annoying Lewis was towards Harvey. They didn't have much of a relationship. Even though in a lot of ways Lewis looked up to Harvey as a friend and always wanted him to be a friend, but Harvey, acted like he didn't even exist. And this time he sat there and in the most comforting and quiet and emotional voice, he said, Lewis, we're family here. You don't have to keep it inside. And you telling me does not mean that you're weak. That takes so much strength to come out and say that, to be vulnerable in a place that I know you don't want to be. And it's okay. It's not your fault. Don't worry about the client. That'll be taken care of. But you have to tell Zane the truth. Lewis is so shook that he's like tears falling down his face. I can't let him think that I'm weak. I've already got it in a bad enough way here. I can't make it worse. So Harvey does something I really wasn't expecting. He offers to tell Lewis for him, hoping that would make it better. And he obviously, Lewis looks so just like a load just comes off his shoulders, knowing that he doesn't have to confront this himself. And Harvey obviously does tell Lewis what has gone on, or Zane what has gone on, because Zane comes to talk to Lewis himself later and apologizes for being so gruff. But also, Donna had a lot to do with this too, because Donna being Donna was not going to be shit on like that. So she brings him the report that he asked for, and it's middling at best. And she says, I told you, you could have hired an accountant and they would have given you a perfectly stellar report. But this is not what I do. And she explains exactly what it is that she does do. And those little pep talks, those little advisory discussions, the whisper sessions that she usually has with Lewis and Harvey and used to have with Mike. Now she's having one with Zane. And Zane's like, you know what? I knew about this whisper shit between you and Harvey. I never thought you would turn this around on me. But it works. And she gets him to see that he's being a fucking bully. And he's turning off everybody. And eventually, if he doesn't quit, then no one's going to listen to anything that he has to say. I mean, they'll respect him for his position and the fact that he's managing partner, but they're not going to respect him as a person if he keeps treating them like shit. And he has to understand that, they each have their own ways of doing things. That Spectre Lit has always had its own way of doing things, very different from the way that Zane has his way, and they have to find some way to coexist, which is the exact same thing that she told Harvey. She said, look, you guys have to straighten your shit out. If you guys don't figure out a way to coexist and let the shit between you drop, it's going to explode. So he eventually does apologize to Lewis, and he tells him that, he reveals a part of himself that I was not expecting him. I mean, I didn't expect him to reveal anything at all. He's usually very close to the vest type person, especially to Lewis, of all people. But he tells Lewis a little story about his own past, and that he grew up kind of rough or around a bad crowd, and that when he was younger, his friends made a decision to roll an innocent guy, and they beat him up pretty bad, and he was part of that, and he never felt right about it, and it haunted him for a very long time. Now, he doesn't take that to say that the guy should be pardoned for what he did to Lewis, but he says, eventually, in time, he's going to come to regret it, and it's going to haunt him just as much as it's haunted Zane. But he makes a point of telling Lewis that he's not weak. And that it's not his fault for what happened in court. That none of this is his fault, that it will be okay. And he tries to give him this comfort to tell him that, if something like this happens, you can come to me. You're family, you can talk to me. Now, I don't know how far the family thing goes. I think he was really just trying to appease Lewis. But, because Zane doesn't seem like that type of guy. But Lewis is the type of person that needs to hear that sort of affirmation. He needs that kind of support. Perhaps he should not have hugged Zane the way he did, but I think it took a lot of weight off of Lewis's shoulders and it made him feel better. So Harvey goes to talk to Donna, and he says to her, he mentioned to Alex about the headhunters from other firms wanting him, or him calling them, trying to find work at other firms. And he's like, you know what, Donna? I found out that it wasn't Alex calling other firms. They came to him. And then he rationalizes that Donna was the one that made the phone calls to get them interested in Alex. But it wasn't because she was trying to get Alex out of the firm. It was because she was trying to solve the situation by getting everyone involved. I'm guessing giving them a swift nudge where it was needed. She's a little sassy. This is what she does best, keeping the firm working. And again, she tells him he really needs to settle his shit with Zane, because if he doesn't, it's going to explode sooner rather than later. In the very last scene of the episode, Lewis is again walking home. And interesting that he would choose to do so, considering that he got mugged walking home the first time. I guess he's a glutton for punishment, or maybe he feels like he needs to get over that fear. And he sees a silhouette of a person standing by his stoop. He can't really see the person's face. It's too dark. And you can tell just for a minute there that he's terrified. He doesn't know who this person is. But when the person walks into the light, he can see that it's Samantha Wheeler. He's like, what are you doing here? And she says she wants to talk to him. And he's like, look, I don't want to talk to him, but I just want to go home, okay? And she said, look, no, you and I are going to talk because I understand what you're going through. I've gone through it myself. And Zane helped me out when I went through it. She offers to teach him self-defense because she feels that if he knows self-defense, if he knows how to protect himself, it will give him more confidence and make him feel more comfortable to be out on the street, And he's like, no, I don't want to do any of that. I just want to go home. And she's point blank says to him, look, when you walked up to your home and you saw this dark figure standing there, you cannot tell me that just for a split second you weren't terrified because you couldn't see my face. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know if I was a danger to you. You didn't know if I was going to attack you. And Lewis knows she's not wrong. That he really is very scared. That fear is pervasive. And she explains to him that if he learns self-defense, it'll help him to deal with that fear and to deal with the world around him. So the episode ends as she's teaching him some self-defense moves. And it's a very interesting scene because of all the people that Samantha Wheeler could have made friends with in this firm, the last person I would have expected her to have any sort of relationship was Lewis fucking Litt. But I guess they have a lot more in common than I realized. Maybe it's the ambition, maybe it's... I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's the underdog thing, but for different reasons. Well, anyway, 4 out of 4 stars for this episode. Absolutely incredible. Like I said, I only wish that shows like this could win awards. Rick Hoffman deserves them all. Alright guys, well that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next week for Season 8, Episode 5. And don't forget, if you like this content and want to see more, pretty soon I'm going to start coming at you guys with actual retro blogs. So look for that very soon. And if you guys want to continue seeing more of this content, like, subscribe, buttons down there. Okay? Bye!